comfortably zoned with the Zig Zag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government.
I am back. You are flying high with me, the Zig Zag Man, over the zone, flying over the zone from Alameda, California, down by the lagoon, as Archie Bunker would say. Everything in Alameda is by the lagoon. We're in Northern California, right across the bay from San Francisco, and I have a very, very special guest. I'm a guy who likes to reminisce, and I'm also a guy that likes to look into the future. So when I reminisced the other day, I was thinking about my old buddy from the California League when I did Topps baseball cards as the representative. I go to the minors and meet with players and coaches and sign players to their $5 checks. And a pitching coach for the Milwaukee Brewers and I really hit it off. This is like 25 years ago. Mark Littell, former Kansas City A's, St. Louis Cardinal closer in the big leagues, became a minor league coach and then got into amateur baseball. And that's basically what I want to talk to you about, Mark Littell. How are you?
Ralph, I'm doing fine. It's good to hear your voice again. I'm really anxious to get started with this thing because I know that we've got a lot of baseball to cover. There's just baseball all the time, especially with spring training starting right now.
Right. Well, let's talk about Mark Littell. One of the things that I was very impressed about when I met you, I can remember for years thinking about this, you were one of the few people that I ever met that were actually big league closers. Not just relief pitchers, not just a pitcher in the big leagues, but actual closers on successful ball clubs. Now, let me ask you what it takes, what differentiates a human to become an actual closer. The last 3 outs are the hardest outs. You got the pinch hitters, you got the matchups. What differentiated you from the normal bear, if you will?
Well, I probably have to say it's basically amnesia, because when you close out a ball game, we really are having a lot of fun. The game hopefully should be over in under 3 minutes. If it's over into the 4-minute range, somebody's generally on base, and possibly, they might have a rally started against a closer. The biggest thing probably that differentiates a closer, though, is that he probably is going to have one pitch that overrides anybody else's on the team. I threw the 92. Well, I threw 92 to 95. I mean, that's okay. That's not bad, but anybody can hit a major league fastball. And the one thing about it is when you have a slider that has depth to the pitch and it bites hard at the very last second, you're going to rack up some ground balls or strikeouts. And if you're throwing the ball over the plate, it's going to be you're going to get off the field. The whole thing is you don't want to spend much time on the field. If you're spending time on the field, somebody's generally going to score. So
right.
Pick it up.
It's the first time I ever heard it described in minutes on the mound. You said in 3 minutes it should be cool. Anything after that. Never heard that in baseball. Not because it's indefinite time, but that's very, very interesting and a very interesting concept. Do you remember who came up with that, or was it you?
It was actually kind of me because people always ask me what it took to be a closer, and I said, well, my first answer is you have to have about a 3 to 5 IQ, because basically, give me the ball, let's get off the field. And
short memory, let's put it that way.
Yeah, very short memory. And, I grew up on a farm, and And my dad wanted things done correctly. When he was a Marine and he was a farmer, but he got shot all to hell in the Korean War, and you had to be very specific with what you were doing. And so I remember when Whitey came to me, Herzog, in '76, and I was having a really, really good spring, and we had kind of blown a game at the time, and in the second game we were in Baltimore, and he came up to me right before the game, probably 20 minutes, and he said, "Hey, country." He said he had his commander stance, and that's what I call where he has four fingers of, both hands with four fingers, and it's tucked in his pants, and his thumbs are outside. He's kind of leaning back on one leg, and he said, "Hey, country, do you know what a closer does?" I said, "Yeah, it's the guy that slams the door." He says, "You're going to start doing that for me." And I said, "Okay." They really didn't know how to use a closer at the time. Gossage and a lot of the guys that were in those short goals right there could, because for us to get a save, everybody said, "Well, you only got 16 saves that year." Well, you had to get 3 innings to get a save. It wasn't one pitch at the time. But I got in over right at 100 innings. And nobody gets in 100 innings today as a closer. I mean, they blow out, which, I did. But, we did a lot of strikeouts real quick. The funny thing, I think, of one of my statistics, I really have some very interesting force dump statistics, I call it, because I still hold a Cardinal record for most strikeouts for a single season. And ESPN had called me up 3 years ago, and they said, "Well, what do you think about your record might fall?" And I said, "What record?" And so he said, "Rosenthal might break your all-time Cardinal record for most strikeouts in a season by a reliever." And I says, "Well, first of all, I didn't know I held a record, and secondly, he missed it by 3, so I'm still holding on to the record after probably 38 years or so." So, but
Country boys are modest. Country boys are modest. Let's put it that way. You might have known in the back of your mind that you had it when you had the interview, but you didn't want to overplay it. But you still got it, and it ain't bragging if you done it. Let's put it that way. What was it like going from Kansas City to St. Louis? New league.
One thing, back then, the American League was more of a high ball strike zone league from the umpires. American League was, down. I mean, a National League was down in the zone. There were a lot more fastballs thrown in the National League. The hitters a little bit more aggressive, more breaking balls, which fit me in the American League.
Again, if anybody doesn't realize, it was because of the chest protectors. In one league, the chest protectors were on the inside, one league on the outside. An umpire could only get so low with the chest protector, changed the angle of the way I was going to say he or she, but it was basically he, saw the ball coming in. And so it made for a terrific differentiation in the two leagues. Did you adjust your grip? Did you adjust your arm angle?
I didn't really. I a little bit of both, but I knew one thing. I had to throw a little bit more inside in the National League because they pretty much hung out over the plate, and so I tried to use the inner half just a little bit more. And the other factor is that I knew I would probably get more strikeouts in the National League because they were a little bit more aggressive, I felt, swing wise. And you got your 3, 4, 5 DH guys. Sorry?
How'd you get hurt?
Just a lot of pitching, just a lot of throwing and some poor mechanics. I don't, nothing against the coaches back then, but, if you ask somebody about mechanics back then, they just go, well, he's throwing fine, this and that. And there wasn't a lot of correction. There started to be a little bit more correction toward the the end of my career, and then I ended up having 2 surgeries. I did rebound from both. My mom was a nurse for 53 years, a registered nurse, and so I was always interested in what made things tick and how little I knew about baseball after I had my first surgery, because I went down to a camp with kids, and I found out that I really couldn't sit down and explain exactly how the game of baseball was played. So that was a very interesting thing that I said, well, heck, I'm in the big leagues, and I can't explain this to a 14-year-old kid. So
right, it's which is good and bad when you think about it, because there really is no set explanation for the game. What was the adjustment like when you left as being a player, when it just, it was over? What was that first year, not going to spring training? Tell me about it from some.
Yeah, you're trying to make it, where you're going to continue, because I did not finish college, and I had worked for the Cardinals in the front office, and I did not want to really work in the front office. I did that for Ewing Kauffman with ticket sales as a player, because he wanted to get me involved in the community. So I was always a person that liked to be around, I was a people person. And
you're serious and you're well-spoken, and he recognized that in you.
Yeah, it's just, and so for 5 years, I was kind of lost a little bit. I was in advertising. I ran a lumber company, and I did some other things, but I always did baseball because I always I always had taught baseball with kids. And then I decided I want to get back in the game on the field professionally. So I went to Australia. There was an opening there for a bicentennial coach, and they chose me, and they interviewed me and stuff. And so I went over to Australia, and I ended up going back 3 more years after that, 88, 89, and then 92, 93, which was different because that was in the professional ranks. I happened to be coaching with Milwaukee at the time, and we ended up sending 4 players into Brisbane. And so since I had been there, they asked me, to make sure they didn't tear the country apart or, painting those towns red. So that was what I was trying to do, and actually trying to teach them a little bit about pitching. So
now there were 2 or 3 that played, 2 or 3 Australians that pitched in the Milwaukee organization. One was a minor league coach. I'm going way back in my memory bank. Do you remember their names? And
well, you had Dave Nielsen, and
that's
Dave
right.
was he's the catcher, and Dave ended up with the Yankees at the end, and Dave was kind of a hot and cold guy. He was a big deal for a little while, and it just never really happened for Dave. I don't think he got as much time in as a lot of people thought he would, but he's Mr. Baseball in Australia still. And he's kind of a shaker and mover over there. And then you had Graham Lloyd, and Graham Lloyd was a big, tall left-handed pitcher, and he was from Adelaide. And there was a shortstop at the time that was pretty darn good. He had been around the big leagues at the time 8 or 9 years, and he was a pretty good ball player. But Australia is they played baseball well over 100 years by the time I'd gotten there in '88, and a lot of people did not know that. And the Queen's game of cricket was always there, but once baseball was around, it's much faster paced than cricket. Cricket's kind of boring, I think. A lot of people say that anyway. But you used to have now they have the 1-day match. They used to have the 5-day matches, and if you batted and you were out, you were basically over on the sidelines cheering for 4 more days. So.
Oh wow, that's a slow-moving game.
Oh gosh, you never touched the field again, and so it was pretty funny. They had their little toddy breaks in there. It was pretty funny when they come out there.
What are the people like in Australia compared to what the people are like in downtown USA?
They're a little more kicked back. I mean, I grew up in the '60s, and I thought I had stepped back into time warp into the '60s, except for the artwork and the buildings that they had. The country's super clean, because the kids pick up, they see paper on the ground, they pick it up, they throw it away. Any of them. I thought it was the cleanest country that I'd ever been in, and I thought the people extremely nice and laid back. Although if you get them a little feisty, they're not afraid to step forward and let's get it going. Then and you definitely, I'm not much of a drinker, but you never want to drink with an Australian and try to keep up with him. He'll definitely put you under. So,
tennis is really the big sport in Australia. I had no idea baseball existed so far back. That's very interesting. And tennis lends itself to be a drinking man's sport for one reason or another.
The one thing that I found interesting about Australia was my very first year over there and second year was when I was doing these clinics. I was in Perth, Australia, and that's the furthest American consulate from Washington. And the interesting thing about this whole Western Australia thing is that it's just basically totally red clay out there, red sand and clay, and there are Aboriginal communities. And Perth, I did not see too many Aboriginals, but when I went to Port Hedland, I actually worked with the Aboriginal community, and that's only a town of 10,000. It basically ships iron ore in from 600 miles from the interior to the port of Port Hedland, and then they disperse it from over the world. But I actually worked with the Aboriginals, and I saw some really, really good arms, and I was very surprised that the play. I mean, you're basically on the end of the earth, out there. You're on the Indian Ocean also. So,
right. Before we speak about amateur baseball, would you give me some insight as to player development in the minors, as from your standpoint, in terms of it? Everybody says, well, a minor league system has to be good scouting and good player development. How do the two work together, and where does I'll just leave it at that. How do the two work together?
Well, from the professional standpoint, the old school adage, and probably still is, because I have a lot of friends in the game still, and you have shipping and receiving, basically. So the shipping is the scouting department. The receiving is, the development department. And so we're sitting there after the June draft, and we're basically saying, who in the hell drafted this guy? So, you want you see him for about 5 days, and you say, well, is there any more that's going to come out of that arm, or you don't know how to basically square up a baseball, or whatever. But you're always trying to put those kids together and see what they actually can do. And I think probably the biggest job from a developmental standpoint is, because I ended up coaching rookie ball for 7 years, and I really did like rookie ball, because you can have a little bit of an impact on setting the tone for where they're headed, and as far as work ethic,
the way they go about their business, what they do off the field. Do you advise them?
Well, each kid
organized ball.
There's each kid goes to his own beat, and what you're trying to do is to make sure that he continues to go to a strong beat that he might have, and if he doesn't, you're going to try to show him something and say, let's see if you can make an adjustment, and basically, are you coachable, and are you willing to grasp and go forward, and that the whole thing is that you got to be coachable. And once you stop producing, then you're no longer of any use to any organization. once you stop your development process, then it's basically shut down at that point. And then that's when you come into a meeting in spring training, and they say we're going to have cuts today, and we're going to have seven guys we're going to bring up, and in a matter of 2 minutes, a guy's on an airplane the next day, or everybody thinks a rock. I'm sorry.
Or a bus back home.
Yeah, or a bus. That's exactly right. But I've seen guys. Everybody thinks a rocket is really fast. Well, if you're in a baseball room with 26 coaches from that are in spring training, basically, and then you've got the farm director, the scouting director, and whoever else wants to walk in on this meeting to see what's going on and listen, including the general manager, to sit there and say, well, somebody might bring up a thing when they're setting teams, and they say they're talking about this one guy says, well, I think this kid can do this. Somebody else, speaks up. In a matter of about 3 minutes, the justification for moving one kid from East Coast to West Coast is, well, I think that's a pretty good idea. Does anybody else agree or disagree with this? And if nobody says anything, this kid just traveled 3,000 miles in 3 minutes. So
right.
He's not in the California League. He's on the Atlantic League. Oh. Sorry.
Did you see the Billy Bean movie?
Yes. Yes.
What did you think about their little interactions around the table with scouting and what have you? Was that realistic as you saw it, as you went through it many, many times?
Well, the Cardinals have always been known to have a very, very good scouting system. And they're very low-key about, who and where they travel, I know. But it is realistic. The game is becoming a little bit more, obviously, it's very techy because of the communication nowadays. I mean, when I was drafted in 71, George Brett and I were drafted the same year. We signed the same year. We played the same league. We played, the 6 years together with the Royals. And you're sitting there, watching George come in with basically he parked his surfboard outside the clubhouse door. So,
hey, I have to interrupt. George Brett. Any George Brett stories or anything, an insight to what made him go? I'm a believer it's all in your head. At that level, at a rookie league level, talent is pretty well distributed between a lot of folks, and who can handle it in, between the years progresses.
Yeah.
I don't know if you agree with that. What was he like from a standpoint of, could you see things that, wow, this guy's a rocket going to go up?
Well, George, the one thing, if you were to ask anybody in the world today that played in the 70s, 80s, and the 90s even, and had watched George come through the ranks and play that 20 years of baseball, in the big leagues, you'd say, who's the loosest player that you've ever seen play the game of baseball? And they'd probably pause and say, oh, that's easy. That's George Brett. I thought he was very intense. I guess I'm going by the pine tar thing. When I watched him come out of the dugout and he looked like he was just burning. No, he was pissed. He was.
Well,
yeah. But George plays extremely loose on a baseball field. That was from the dugout forward. If you put him over at third or up at the plate, he's very loose and very, very relaxed at the plate, and that's what it takes to be, the top of line player. Let's see, who's going to relax more today? Am I going to relax more than this hitter right now? And I'm going to do my body language thing, and my arm's killing me, but I'm still going to show you it's not going to get you out. George, on the other hand, he played hurt, but he still played relaxed, and he had a game plan, and so it was instinctive what he did when he broke up double play. Hal McRae wrote the book on breaking up double plays and killing second baseman and shortstop, and George followed.
Right, Don Baylor too. I remember.
George followed suit, with McRae, and as far as doing that, and but that's the thing that separates a lot of kids right there. But George had extremely fast hands, good hands. I know when you shake a player's hands from the past, we've always had a strong, a pretty strong handshake. Everything's from the elbows to the fingertips as far as hitting or throwing a baseball. And if you look at some of the guys nowadays, don't get me wrong, there's some great, great athletes out there. But you're looking at sometimes more, maybe a little bit more velocity. But when George and I came up, we came up with 150 million people in the United States. Now there's 320 million. So there's more than double. But the other factor is that you have a lot more arm injuries, it seems like.
Sports.
Well, you have other sports, but you have a lot of other arm injuries. The intensity level, I'm not so sure sometimes is always there. But if you got double the population, you've also, so you're kind of averaging out some things. But when my dad told me to go change plow points on something or go mow a lawn, that was my workout. And it was the same way back in the 60s or the 70s. If somebody said do something, well, you're going to do it, and you didn't have a weight program that said, okay, you're done in 20 minutes. Okay, so you're off the rest of the day.
Yeah, but you're working on a farm. You're getting big in a natural way, which leads me to believe that all these extensive weight programs, you're hearing about injuries, oblique, this, that, and the other thing, guys getting so big that their tendons and their ligaments can't handle the bulk.
Right.
Something's definitely wrong.
Well, you have an overload of the. Yeah, you have overloads of the bones right there. You have maybe a kid with medium bone mass and bone structure, and then you have a larger muscle, and they wonder why they have a lot of chips and they have a lot of Tommy Johns and ligament damage and pulling away, because all they're doing is thinking about the velocity, whereas the pitching aspect, you want to say, is somewhat there, but it's still boiling down today. Bigger, stronger, home runs, things of that nature. Granted, the coaching and film has changed the game of baseball. 20 years ago, when film came out and it started getting, pretty darn good, that changed the game tremendously. Because film does not lie. It's just not going to lie. This is where you're wrong, and this is what you need to do to make it right.
And you can see where your weaknesses are. You can see what gets you out. They also have these tremendous statistics where they know exactly where to move the infield around, which is new.
Right.
And I just wanted to add one thing to those statistics, how many more players there are today to choose from. Yeah. Now you're importing players from a trillion, not just Australia, the Dominican and Cuba and everywhere else. You have China, Korea. You have a worldwide influx of folks.
Well,
so that. Go ahead.
The Dominican Republic, has a tremendous, obvious following of baseball. You've got almost a little bit over 30% of Major League Baseball, which is Latino. And, I've coached over there and played over there and done stuff in Panama and Dominican, Puerto Rico. And, you're looking at a third world country, but you're looking at kids that are basically hungry for the game, whereas our kids aren't near as hungry as they used to be,
Well, are they hungry for the game, or are they hungry to walk off the island because of the extreme poverty and the rewards of just being off the island and making big bucks that they could send back?
Well, I think first of all they like the game of baseball because there's that's all they have is their gloves over there are made out of melted milk cartons. They solder them together with matches. And then they can.
Understood that they used Haitians as bases, for crying out loud.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
that's horrible, and apologize.
Well, it's just, I mean, no, I'm
all the
serious.
Haitians are out there on the podcast network. Pardon me?
It's you know, I think I've always said every American kid should be parachuted into the Dominican Republic with $50 and see where he ends up after a week. You know, so because
exactly,
you got to get a little bit tougher here.
He'll turn that double play faster than Mazeroski at that point.
Exactly.
Just to get back off the islands. Before we get to amateur ball, my friends would say, "You never even ask. You never blah 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 about Chambliss."
Right.
You know, anything would have thrown a different pitch? How did it affect anything you can throw in there? And I know it's not a subject that you'd rather talk about.
That's about every third day I get that question still. But the interesting factor is that I only gave up one home run the whole year on that whole deal, and you know, Cosell was calling part of the game for one of the networks, and you know, some other people were calling it, and I think one of the statements was, Mark Littell, big strong country boy out on the mound, hasn't given up but one home run all year. And then it was the first pitch of the ninth. You know, there it goes up, it goes out 2.5 feet. I didn't know if it was going to go out. I know I was very much aware of the short right field porch. That didn't bother me. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And but you know, would I change it? I don't know. I mean, I threw a pitch. He hit it up in the air.
The only thing I can do to make you feel better. What number did you wear that year with Kansas City?
I was number 17.
Number 17.
So
listen up.
Yeah.
Now pitching for the Kansas City, number 17, Mark Littell, number 17. That's the best voice of the Yankees I could do.
Yeah, that's about right. Of course, that's Bob Shepard. Yeah.
Bob Shepard.
Yeah.
That's I grew up in New York listening to him at Yankee Stadium. The Giants had left when I was a real little kid, and then I went to 1 million Yankee games. And I wasn't a Yankee fan, but I was a Yankee worshiper. And you worship the plate, you worship the reps, you worship the Fords and the Yogis growing up. Who'd you root for as a kid? You grew up. You didn't just sign with Kansas City. You were drafted by Kansas City. Who would have you signed with at your hometown team?
I grew up in the Boot Heel, Missouri, which is about 85 miles north of Memphis. And so we had I grew up on a cotton and a soybean farm, and so the Cardinals were our team at that point because it was 200 miles to the north, and we would go up to Old Sportsman's Ballpark was the very first place I saw a baseball game. And
remember that game
I remember
in particular.
I'm sorry?
Do you remember that particular game?
Yes, I do. I remember Willie Mason hitting 2 home runs the opposite field in Old Sportsman's Ballpark. Sure do.
Whoa, nice.
Yeah, that was in '63, and it was called Willie Mays and Company. So he had McCovey and everybody else, you know. And,
yes, what terrific teams.
Yeah. And then the next year,
the Cardinals were always competitive. Tremendous teams. Dick Grote, Javier, McCarver. They ended up getting Roger Maris from the Yankees. Unfortunately, had a wrist injury. Brock and Flood. What tremendous teams to watch. And Kenny Boyer. Wow. Did you get to see in '63? You got to see Musial on this last year.
I did, and I saw him get his last hit between the number of 5 and 6. So I got a single, opposite way.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it because I was so young. But I'll tell you a very interesting story because I am writing a book right now, and you know, it's being edited by a couple of people, and I've been working on it for 2 years because everybody's said, "Hey, Mark, you got to write a book. You got to write a book." Country guy, because you get so many stories. And I said, yeah. So one of the stories is interesting. In 1964, I broke my foot in a baseball game, and we were going up to see the Cardinals play because that was a big deal to come off of the farm and drive all the way up to St. Louis and watch the St. Louis Cardinals play. Well, they had just acquired Lou Brock in a trade from Chicago. He played.
Brolio.
Yes, and he played in Houston his very first game, the Colt 45s. So he was down there, and he would make his debut back up in St. Louis. Well, we're in Old Sportsman's Ballpark. We got seats up in the nosebleed section, and I'm on crutches, and my brother, who played baseball at Mississippi State, he got drafted twice, and he chose not to play. He was a catcher. He caught me. So it was my brother, my mother, and father, and I. And my dad goes over to the attendant on the elevator, who had the old caged elevator where it slammed shut and you could see everything. Well, in Old Sportsman's Ballpark, it's like Wrigley Field. Wrigley Field is you have to go up the steps or go up an elevator to the clubhouse, where visiting clubhouse. So it was the same way in Old Sportsman's. So the guy said, "Yeah, I'll take you to the top. That's no problem. You guys come on, get on the elevator." So we got on the elevator, and sure enough, this guy walks on, and it was a player. You could tell it was a player, and I didn't know who it was. But my dad did, and we were halfway up, and my dad said, "You're Lou Brock, aren't you?" And he said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well," he said, "we're really glad to have you in St. Louis, Mr. Brock." He said, "Wish you the best, and Cardinal baseball." And he says, well, thank you very much. And he got off the elevator. Well, 15 years later, when I was playing with the Cardinals, and we were playing the Cubs in St. Louis, it was always a sellout because St. Louis and the Cardinals were always St. Louis and the Cardinals. They kind of fought each other, and they had that nice rivalry. So the factor in this whole matter is Lou was on the team at that time, obviously still when I was there, and I'd mentioned to him about meeting him when I was 14, and he was kind of snickered at it. But the year when he got his 3,000th hit, he went in and he was leading off that night against the Cubs, and he had 2,998 hits. For his first at bat, he gets a single. He's the leadoff guy, and everybody's going nuts. And in the fourth inning, he gets his 3,000th hit. So they stop the game for 5 or 6 minutes, and we all go onto the field, and the crowd's going nuts, and it was pretty interesting because we were at 2-2. So the funny thing is I get into the game in the 8th and 9th as the closer, and I picked up the win 3-2 on that on his 3,000th hit night. Now that's really,
oh wow.
That's a Forrest Gump statistic.
No, that's a great one.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I'm glad you finished your professional stories with that one as opposed to the other one that I just had to ask only to save ribbing because I try to make an interview a fun experience, and I'm not looking to find out whose wife you messed with or this, that, and the other.
Right.
I don't care about any of that stuff. But I just had to ask, and I'm glad. What intrigues me, again, I love to look back in the past. I love to look. I really enjoy the future and hearing about who's coming up in the ranks, let alone who hasn't even hit the ranks yet.
Right.
First of all, I want you to define amateur as opposed to professional, because you're in the amateur game right now. And hasn't the amateur game, it's almost semi-pro in itself on some levels? Go take it from there. You have
now they have the independent leagues, and they're they're calling that professional, which is true because they do get paid. They don't get paid a lot. They basically, pay for their season and up there, and they put them up and they feed them and X number of dollars.
Well, I'm more concerned with the guys who haven't yet signed, who aren't professional.
Well, you've got 1,632 college. You've got 1,632 colleges, for instance, out there that play college baseball in the United States. 1,632. The other thing is this: I have 2 college baseball teams during the summer. Yeah, over in the Arizona Collegiate League. I was very lucky last year. It won't happen again. I had 3 of my pitchers that ended up signing, and that was great. 2 went with Pittsburgh, and 1 went with the Cardinals. The Pittsburgh guys played the year before in the college league together, and then they played their first year together in rookie ball. I thought that was ironic. But, and the interesting thing, too, is the kids in Arizona and, let's say, Southern California, we have a burnout factor out there. I mean, there's some good baseball, but you talked about the Dominican Republic. I mean, you see some really good arms over there, but we've got some arms that are almost it's hard to find, a lot of, quality pitching right now. You look at 18-year-olds in the state of Arizona, and Arizona, everybody says, it's big baseball, big baseball. Well, we play a lot of baseball. Don't get me wrong. They play a tremendous amount because of the weather. But the burnout factor is also tremendous because, like you said, there's other sports, there's technology, there's other things to do than baseball. You put Phoenix is a city of 4.6 million in the metropolitan area. The state has 18 colleges. They have 14 junior colleges, and then they have 3 Division I's with Grand Canyon, ASU, and U of A, and then they have 1 NAIA team, which is Arizona Christian. But that's not very many. 18. Missouri, on the other hand, has 32 colleges. So you're
they don't get to play. They don't get to play anywhere near as much because of the weather. But then again, You're right. They don't get burnt. They don't burn out. Their arms aren't overused. Do you think the arm trouble that we see is a result of high school, maybe junior college, where they're using kids too much, throwing curveballs too much?
I think what they do, and the Arizona Interscholastic Association, Athletic Association, for instance. I've given the talks for, coaches' conventions, and I proposed one time that I said, why don't you guys come up with a pitch tape to do that, for high school. And they said, well, we've had some scouts. And I said, a scout's a scout. They said, I'm sorry, but I said, I'm a development guy. Scout asks me usually, so, what's going on. But you see kids throwing 120, 130 pitches in games all the time. They blow out. I had one guy that he threw 178 pitches in a game. He ended up playing for U of A, but the thing about it was he played high school at this extremely good high school. But it doesn't matter if you've got the numbers and if you've got the quality of player. You don't necessarily have to have a very good coach to win. If you've got if you got the studs. So.
You yourself groomed as a relief pitcher or as a starting pitcher?
No, I was a starter. Matter of fact, I got the Allie Reynolds Award in AAA. I was 16-6, and I'd finished. I don't know. I think I 12 or 13 complete games in AAA, but I'd missed a month because they had to call me up in 1973. I actually went up ahead of George Brett on this because George and I were rooming and I made the team on the whim because I didn't even go to big league camp. I was a 12th round pick. I didn't even go to big league camp, so they did not know who I was. All they knew is this kid's 9-1 in AAA, and administratively they knew that we're going to lose this guy because somebody probably could have claimed me because of, he didn't go to big league camp, went on the 40-man roster. There was all kinds of rules, and I didn't even know what they were. All I knew was I was playing in the big league, so they called me up when I was 9-1, and that was in early June. When I was 9-1, and so I'm 20 years old and the youngest player in the big leagues. So my debut was against Baltimore Orioles in 1973, and I'd never been to big league camp. So I threw 6 1/3 innings and gave up 4 hits, gave up 1 run, and everything was it's fine. We didn't win. I didn't take a loss, but we ended up losing that ball game. I go back in to pitch against Oakland, and I get annihilated. And so they keep me there for 30 days. I'm sure they had to keep me there 30 days. I pitched once more after that, and then I went back to AAA and finished up 16-6. So interesting. But I was a starter, and I was a two-pitch pitcher. I was not a three-pitch guy. I mean, in starting role, I could throw a change-up in AAA and get by with it. But once my demeanor changed, I started thinking that I had to do something a little different if I'm going to be consistent and stay at the big league level. So that's what happened, and they didn't know what a closer was back then. I mean, I don't think they knew what to call a closer. That was right in that era when we got these guys that are specialized to, they can come in and throw us 2 or 3 innings or 1 inning, and we'll give them a save if they throw 3 innings. And it's totally changed. And then we didn't know how to warm up. We warmed up like a starter almost, and then we found out that, hey, we got to get, quick, pretty loose here. But we didn't have anybody telling us, here's how you do it. The first guy that told me how to warm up was Darryl Knowles, and it was a player that I was playing with, Darryl Knowles, the player. And he said, hey, country, you want to know how to try to figure this out? And he said, you're wearing yourself out doing this. He said, you need to do this, this, and this. So my first teaching from how to close, how to warm up to close, so you wouldn't keep throwing and doing this, and you got to shut it down at certain times. So there it was. Hello.
We're back. We got a little technical problem here and have it resolved. We're both back on the air. Mark, would you continue what you were saying?
Well, I'm trying to figure out where I kind of got lost the technical part, but as far as the players go, you've got the new player coming out.
Level, these players at times throw too many pitches.
Well, there we go. Sure, they do. I mean, for instance, you got guys that throw upwards of 100 and 120 pitches in a game. Major leaguers don't even do that. I mean,
right.
At the minor league level, we don't even go. Maybe the first half in A-ball, we don't even get up to maybe but 90, and then the second half on occasion, we'll go over that 100 pitch mark. But you've really got to watch the arms.
Is high A ball pretty much, if you're succeeding at high A ball, is that pretty much prognosis you're going to make the majors someday? If you're really doing well at high A ball, either in Florida or in California.
That's a very good way of putting it, because if you're successful in high A ball and you're handling and can do the job with ease, and you're mature enough, then you're going to go, hit Double A. Once you're in Double A, you're basically the backup team for the big leagues, because that's where all your guys are. That's where all the prospects are. It's not AAA anymore. AAA to me is almost like a beer league. And because I've coached in AAA.
So you're responsible as an as a high A coach, you're really responsible for the future of that pitching staff. There has to be a big inequity between the way big league coaches are paid and minor league coaches are paid. Is that all part of the problem, if you will say, if there is a problem on that level, and what determines whether or not you're going to be promoted up the ranks as a minor league coach? You want to address that for a second?
When I came in, I started off in the Midwest League when I was with San Diego, and not making really that much money, but you're just trying to get your foot in the door. And it seemed like every year you'd maybe go up $1,500, $2,000. They did it across the board, 3 or 4%, kick in right there on the salary. But as far as it's not like colleges, because college coaches in baseball, some of those guys can get paid pretty darn well, very well, exactly. But the guys that make the money are now in the big leagues. But even some of the big league coaches that used to be as of 8 and 10 years ago, if you were making X number of dollars, it might be better to stay in the minor leagues because of the rents and things of that nature, and you're moving around and your family and all. There's so many other variables that you can throw into this whole mess, and you've really got to have a very, very patient wife or an understanding wife that's willing to understand that this is what's going to happen. And eventually, I know I did 18 years, and I said to myself, you basically have to have a sponsor. I was with Boach for 1 year, and we won the California League the year before I actually met you. I was working for the Padres. So on those teams, you had Piazza and Pedro Martinez over in Bakersfield. And, we had our players. They had some players. We ended up winning it. But it shows you what type of a player that is in that league. It's a very high caliber player. And then, Boach, 3 years later, Boach was a big league manager, and he got me a few interviews, but it never panned out for me. And you've only got 30 major league teams, so it's pretty much slim pickings right there. So, and I got tired of, when you have new change of ownership, management, new farm director, whatever. They seem to want to bring their guys in. Oh, we really like you, but you're doing a good job. But we want to, get somebody else. So well, you get tired of that. So
I understand. It's like any other profession. It doesn't ruin it's still a little boy's game on some level. You get up and you're playing a game. You mentioned that when you talked about going out and closing. You're playing a game. That's got to be nice. As a middle-aged adult, all these years, you're getting to play. You're getting to teach and enjoy the development of others. Pretty cool. You're a great interviewer.
It is.
I hope this continues. I hope you'll come back and talk and maybe extend this. Maybe do a commentary on a regular basis on my station. You're incredibly articulate, and we've got a lot to talk about so I hope you'll come back. I'm going to close it out by just telling everybody to keep on keeping on, keep your humor dry, keep your dreams wet, keep your kids out of recruiting stations, keep your kids off the laps of clerics that wear dresses, keep all those things going, and keep on having fun, keep on remembering that life is good and life can be fun. You're having that, and Mark, I really appreciate you being a guest, and this has been good catching up with you after these many years. Do you want to talk about those little Topps cards that year? One of us had a box of those miniature Top cards years ago, and when I think of Mark Littell, I think we talked to baseball cards. You had a respect for baseball cards. And
well, the first time I ever used a baseball card was, other than looking at the baseball card and trying to trade it, was actually in my bicycle. I was to make the noise with the to put it between the spokes. So,
and if you had that card, it would be worth every much to you as if it were in pristine order, because that's how you remember it.
Exactly. And the little bitty cards I got out of the Cracker Jacks boxes, and so they had a thing going that year for those little baseball cards with Cracker Jacks, and I was, for some reason, I got on this click, of saying, hey, these are cool.
Right, and I think you traded me a box somewhere. I may have that box of little baseball cards, because Topps gave me a whole bunch of cards to give out. And, that was a nice experience, and I love the Milwaukee organization. Tim Ireland was a coach in that organization.
Yes.
Do you remember, I think Jerry Ramey Jerry Ramey?
Yeah.
Did he coach in that organization for a while? Yeah, it was really nice.
Yes.
The bunch of Rovers that came down, Romero, and Stockton was a nice place for my summer visits to the Valley all these many years ago. Thanks for catching up on old times with me. It was fun as can be. I really enjoyed your company, sir.
Ralph enjoyed the visit, and looking forward to doing this again.
Beautiful. We'll talk soon. Adios, everybody.